Russian forces pressed into Ukraine's eastern towns of Pokrovsk and Myrnohrad during this past week as Kiev has mounted a strong military defense. Ukraine's commander-in-chief Alexander Syrsky said that almost half of the battles that are being fought currently on a 1,000-kilometer front were happening in these two towns. He claims that Russia has committed 150,000 troops, almost a quarter of its strength in Ukraine, just to capture these two cities. Russia sees Pokrovsk as a gateway to the remaining unoccupied parts of the Donetsk. This is a region which it already has claimed as its own since September of 2022. As Ukrainians were gripped by a corruption scandal involving some of the closest allies of President Volodymyr Zelensky, the battlefront was in a fluid state. Neither side seemed to have gained a decisive military advantage on the ground. Both Russia and Ukraine often capture and then recapture neighborhoods and individual buildings from each other's armies. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has acknowledged the difficult situation around Pokrovsk, but he's also said that the Ukrainian forces are badly outnumbered, but he does not want to show any sign of ordering a retreat.
Детально говорили сьогодні з головнокомандувачем та начальником Генерального штабу про ситуацію на фронті, на всіх напрямках. Найбільш складно зараз на Покровському напрямку. Там, як і в попередні тижні, найбільша інтенсивність бойових дій. Сильне зосередження росіян. Окупанти всіма методами намагаються закріпитись, кожен знищений окупант. Саме там це результат для всієї нашої.
It did appear, though, that the Russians were slowly gaining ground. Ukrainian troops told Reuters that the defense of Pokrovsk was steadily deteriorating despite the army's efforts to reinforce the city. Russia's Ministry of Defense has said its troops were advancing through Pokrovsk in house-to-house battles. In Myrnohrad, to the east of Pokrovsk, Russian troops were infiltrating the eastern reaches of the town. This week, they made a marginal advance into the northern edge of the city, while Ukrainian defenders firmly held to the bulk of the city. Both of these cities are precariously situated in a Russian encirclement, whether it's from the north, the south, and the east. In fact, escape routes are only available towards the west. It's a three-pronged approach, which means Ukraine is left with just one option, that is either go right into the heart of the battle or to retreat. The operational significance of the seizure of Pokrovsk by Russia depends on whether Ukrainian forces conduct an orderly retreat or a disorderly withdrawal. Also on the ability of Russian forces to exploit the collapse of this wall. Russia's defense ministry has repeatedly claimed that the complete encirclement and surrender of forces inside these two cities, particularly in Pokrovsk, is only a matter of days, if not just hours. Yet, Ukraine has defied Russian expectations. It has continued to fight. It is engaged in active defense using drones for search and strike operations. In October alone, short-range drones had struck more than 75,000 targets. It's a 16% increase on just the 65,000-odd targets that had been struck in the previous month of September. Ukraine's argument for holding cities as long as possible is that it forces the Russian army to expand vast number of troops, leaving it weakened. But there is also a political element, as both sides have been waging a battle of narratives. Kiev wants to prevent Moscow from claiming military successes that could sap morale back home. More importantly, the Kremlin could use these to persuade Donald Trump and his administration that supporting Ukraine is a losing battle. But with parts of Pokrovsk already under Russian control and the adjacent city of Myrnohrad facing the threat of encirclement, military analysts are worried that Kiev might now be repeating its past mistakes. In Pokrovsk particularly, which had a pre-war population of 60,000, if it falls, it would be the largest Ukrainian city to fall since Bakhmut in May 2023. The capture of Pokrovsk would give Russia a platform to push northwards and pursue its stated goal, which is to capture the entire Donetsk region. Russia already controls about 3/4 of Pokrovsk. In fact, If Ukraine keeps fighting for Pokrovsk, it also risks being drawn into a protracted urban combat as Russia continues to pour more superior resources into the battle. While Moscow has proved capable of replacing its losses through regular army recruitments, Ukraine has long struggled with troop shortages. Pokrovsk and Mirnohrad have long stood as bulwarks against Russian advances in Donetsk. Moscow's forces began attacking these cities more than a year ago, but they've been held back because of Ukraine's fortified defenses and its extensive use of drones. But that may just be about to snap.
Been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.